Good afternoon, and thank you for being here with us. We're really, really excited to be here, to our live audience and also to our audience online. My name is Tanja Wessels, and I am moderating this panel this afternoon about sustainability and fashion education. And I'm joined by 4 fantastic panelists coming from a diverse range of backgrounds, and we'll get onto that a little bit later. But I would like to ask before we start that as an audience present here, this conversation and this topic is so important for all of us. We really, really welcome everybody's input. This is a safe space, this is an open space, and this is a learning space, true to the subject of education, and we really value your participation. When it comes to sustainable fashion, we all kind of hold a piece of the puzzle, but only by putting those pieces out, sharing them, showing them, and putting them together do we really get the full picture. So that's why we invite you to really partake today. And before we actually get started into the panel, I wanted to share something that I found as I was preparing my notes and doing my research for today. And it's a finding by REDRESS that I want to share with you, and I'm going to read it right now. They found that they were surprised by some of the findings that even after searching 5 pages into Google, it became clear that no school in Asia has embedded sustainable fashion as a core program, making it a focus of their institution. Most haven't even implemented anything related to sustainability in general. Rather, there has been just occasionally news of random events, competitions like sustainable fashion shows held by schools, or you need to dig deep into the curriculum lineup to find of select modules. I found this rather insightful and wanted to share that with you before we get into the subject. And I also wanted to ask you an audience question. When it comes to the title of this panel, how do you feel? Let's have a show of hands. Do you feel that enough is being done in sustainable education and fashion? Yes. Let's see all yeses. Put your hands up. Really? 1? 1 person? Okay. And I'm guessing everybody else is no? On the fence, everybody else is no. All right. Let's keep that in mind. Thank you for sharing. So I wanted to share a couple of statistics around the industry that we may or may not be familiar with, but one that really strikes me is that we know that fashion is wasteful, and every second, the equivalent of 1 garbage truck of textiles is landfilled or burned. Now, I did the math, and that sentence took me around 6 seconds to say. So we have 6 trucks of waste just in that time frame. We know that fashion is polluting. The fashion industry is responsible for 10% of annual global carbon emissions, more than all international flights and maritime shipping combined. And my last fun fact is that if left unchecked, things are going to get worse. The fashion industry's carbon emission will surge to more than 60% by 2030. So just some food for thought as we go deeper into this subject to give us a little bit of framework. On the really good side is that we have 4 fantastic panelists here from very diverse backgrounds, which makes me really excited because we have somebody from education, we have somebody from the industry, we have a learner, we have a bridge to all of those industries, and we have consumers. That will be all of us sitting here right now. So without further ado, I will let the I'll let the panelists introduce themselves, tell you a little bit more about what they do and what can be expected for today. So let's start with you, Chris.
Okay, thank you so much, Tanja. And I'm Chris Lowe from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. I am the subject lecturer of the Sustainability and Fashion Textile for the past 5 years, since we have started that subject as an elective and then now become a core subject in our program. And recently we developed in response to your numbers, there's no such program in Asia. We developed that program actually 2 years ago, but after all the COVID and things, we kind of slowed down because we have to write for the right time for a new program. So I developed a sustainability program for PolyU, and that will be announced soon, hopefully. And thus I spend a lot of time in the research regarding the linkage between sustainability and financial performance of listing company. So hopefully today I can share some challenges and difficulties regarding the education, especially the university educations for this area. Yeah, thank you.
And I'm going to include our guests on the screen. Let's start with you, Sara, in Singapore. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks so much. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me. So I'm Sara Stefanski. I'm the Senior Director for Global Sustainability and Responsibility Strategy at VF. If you don't know VF, you hopefully know our brands like the North Face, Timberland, Vans, Dickies, Smartwool, Icebreaker, and others. I've been with VF for 3.5 years, mostly based in Hong Kong, actually, and I only recently moved to Singapore about 2 months ago. You know, this organization really puts sustainability at the forefront of our business decisions. And part of our department's focus is on 3 main areas of work. That's environmental sustainability, so looking at the waste, water, energy emissions of both our owned operations and our supply chain operations. We also focus on responsible sourcing, which is looking at the people who work in our factories and throughout our supply chain in terms of safety and well-being. And we look at product stewardship and traceability, so ensuring that our products are safe for consumer use in terms of the chemical inputs, and making sure we can understand where those products and materials are coming from all the way upstream to ideally point of origin. So we've got a lot of work going on, and really looking forward to the conversation today. Thanks.
Thank you. And Morgane, I'm going to ask you to go next, but I also have to make a disclaimer. We didn't coordinate our colors today. It was just the luck of the draw, so this wasn't planned. Morgane, please tell us about your work.
Thanks, Tanja. I love that we have the same feel for the colors today. So my name is Morgane Parizot. I'm French. I've got a background in textile engineering, and throughout my career, I worked on product development, innovation projects, not just on product, also retail, digital. But what I'm really passionate about is sustainability and bringing circularity in the fashion industry and pushing that mission and that agenda. And so I've joined REDRESS about a year ago as education director. And the work that I do with my team at REDRESS is really educating, promoting circularity for emerging designers. So that includes the designers that are still studying, as well as the designers that are maybe freshly graduate or have just a couple of years under the belt. But that also includes working with partners like Chris, so academia around the world, with a big focus on Hong Kong and Asia, of course. And that also includes working with partners, like working with Sara, with VF. This year, VF is again a sponsor of REDRESS for the prize, the first prize of our REDRESS Design Award competition. This is very exciting. If you have the time, join our live stream on Saturday. You'll see our amazing designer for this year going down the runway with a collection. So this is what I do, so it keeps us busy.
Sure does. And Miruna, over in Europe, welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hi. Thanks. I'm Miruna. I'm fourth-year student at the Amsterdam Fashion Institute. So I'm about to graduate. So right now I actually find myself at the crossroads between education and entering the industry. As a designer, I'm passionate about upcycling, repurposing waste, but also very much about social design and the consumer engagement side of things. So basically making the consumer more aware of the way they interact with fashion and of their choices and of what fashion means to them. And today I'm here on behalf of the Dirty Laundry Collective, which is a student activist collective founded at the Amsterdam Fashion Institute, which actually brought a lot of positive changes into our curriculum and approach to sustainability in our school. So I'm actually here today to advocate for the strong influence students can have on the current sustainability situation.
Fantastic, thank you. Now, one thing I didn't do, and I'm going to do it right now, so bear with me. We're going to have a little speed round where I'm going to ask you each one to say whether you agree with the title of this panel or not, yes or no. Chris?
Regarding the title, right?
Yes. Do you think enough is being, are we failing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's embarrassed that actually from an educator, but I do believe it's failing. because in the university education system, we have our barriers because we need to develop a discipline. So when sustainability itself is not a discipline like accounting, marketing, and finance, then when you propose something to convince the senior management to make it like a standalone program, you need a lot of supports and evidence from the industry. And that's one part. So therefore, it's very slow when we talk about university curriculum for sustainability. But we are not actually failing, in content. In content, we have integrated sustainability in subjects already. So we will not miss that part. When we talk about design, when we talk about operations management, supply chain management, branding and marketing, we do cover that. But right now, it's not yet that this word, sustainability, become like in the highest point in the curriculum structure. So that part is failing because without that recognitions, it's hard to further develop the sustainability into a discipline that help the next generation to get the recognition they need.
Okay.
So that's my response for that.
Thank you, thank you. Sara, what's your take on this?
I'm somewhere in the middle. I agree that we can certainly do more to ensure the future of fashion is inherently sustainable. And a big part of that is through education, not just for fashion students, but for the broader population globally. On the other hand, we have come quite a long way, even in the past 10 years or so that I've been in the sustainability world. I've seen that there's a notable uptick in sustainability-specific programs, at least in the US and Europe, maybe not globally just yet, but I'm from the US and I've definitely seen that increase in the last several years. There's more resources and organizations focused on this topic. There's tools that we can use. And the overall awareness and discussion on these topics has also increased over these past several years. So this gives me hope that there's more work to do, but we are headed in the right direction.
Okay, thank you. Morgane, what's your take?
Yeah, I think we're failing at the moment. Doesn't mean that we're going to fail in the future, but if we keep going the way we are, I don't think it's enough. And maybe have a slightly skewed view thinking of Asia specifically, but Asia is holding a lot of the manufacturers, a lot of small brands as well and designers. And yet the sustainability education is definitely lacking. So I think, we're failing the industry in general if we continue. But, to Sara's point, it's changing, but it's slow. It's too slow.
Okay. Miruna, what's your take?
I'm also a bit in the middle. I wouldn't say we're failing. But I would say maybe we're a bit on the wrong track because to me it feels like we're pushing sustainability to feel like this maybe even corporate term, which makes it a bit distant from the people who actually should be taking it very personally, such as designers. So I just think next to sustainability literacy education and understanding, we should also be focusing on maybe more emotional education of basically educating the connection, the direct connection people have with sustainability, because that's going to directly influence their actions. So I think we're on the right track, but I think it should be a bit broader than it is now.
Thank you. You make a good point. We sometimes, when we're talking about these subjects, we forget about the human connection or the psychology involved in getting people to do what they do or question why people do what they do. So thank you for picking up on that. And you also mentioned social design, which is something that I hope to get a little bit deeper into, further into the conversation. So we're going to start with a very optimistic question, okay? I know this has all been a bit heavy and tough, but we're going to start with a really optimistic question. And that question is, what is the dream? What is the good outcome? What is the good path? What is a good story that we can tell around this? And why do you care? Like, why is this important to you on a personal level? And we're going to start with you, Morgane.
Sure. Well, for me, the dream is that the fashion industry transformed to a regenerative industry, and that means that basically collectively we all chipped in, and when I say all, I mean not just what we think of the fashion industry, the manufacturers, the brands, the others, but all, the consumers included. We all chip in to really change the industry. So again, changing mindset, changing, really reflecting on our values, and putting the work into it, and not thinking like I think we tend to think at the moment that it's someone else's problem. So that's my dream, that we all feel 150% involved as a consumer, as an educator, as a student, as someone that just wears clothes. We're all involved in this.
Yeah, that's a good point. I often say that fashion and food are like the gateway drugs to the sustainability conversation, because we all eat and we all get dressed. Consequently, we're all kind of part of the conversation, so absolutely. Sara, what are your thoughts on that?
Similar thought. To me, the dream is that the fashion industry becomes a role model for other industries and makes the fundamental and long-lasting and positive changes to the existing systems as collaborators, not as competitors. So ideally, our industry and other industries would all work together to embrace and scale things like new business models, driving toward waste elimination, only using clean energy in production, enabling sustainable livelihoods across the whole value chain, and many other things. But these things need to be done together if they're going to get done for long-term impact and in a reasonable time frame. We can't work in silos. And there's always a lot of talk of collaboration, but actually doing the collaboration is another level that I would love to see happen on a broader scale. And personally, this is important to me because we all have very limited time here, right? I want to make sure I'm using my time to make truly positive impacts in the world and leaving it better than I found it. So that's what it means to me personally.
Thank you. Chris?
Okay, I think I have two dreams. One is, sustainability can be eventually a standalone discipline that have professional recognitions, professional association that work across not just fashion, but for all industries. And people will be, when you are doing the hiring job, recruiting, the certificate or whatever recognition will count, then that will be something that's the first dream for the education. The second one is to educate, because of my background, is the operations management, supply chain management, and research. So my hope is to educate the corporate leaders to make sure they all understand sustainability is not an operational level decisions, it's a strategic level decisions. So like those new startup, they strategically position themselves with the circular supply chain and materials that they use. Everything is strategic. But for traditional company, they treat it as like operational level stuff. That diminish the whole impact that they can do for the whole world. So for example, in one of my studies, published a few years ago, I searched the listed company in the United States for this chief sustainability officer. And I searched their background. So whether they are from like environmental or social or health and safety or chemistry, but I only find like 40-something% of them with relevant backgrounds. Another 56% are marketing, public relations, finance, compliance, or actually a lawyer. Okay, can you imagine a lawyer in charge of the sustainability? That's what's happening. So it reflects the chief levels, or the CEO, or at least the C-suite levels. Still, half of them are not taking this seriously. So that's my dream, to change that kind of misunderstanding on sustainability.
Pretty holistic approach. And Miruna, what's your input?
My dream, to put it simply, my dream is that we're all on the same page. There's no hidden agendas. Everybody just we just acknowledge the need we have for change, and there's this cultural shift where, for example, in design, sustainability becomes just an intrinsic part, just as intrinsic as the fact that a piece of clothing needs to look good. It will also need to be sustainable, so that's not gonna be just a box that needs to be checked because it's a trend, or just marketing in the form of sustainability. I just dream that we're all gonna get our values aligned and do what's right because we feel it's right, not because we feel we have to,
So perhaps less around punishment and more around true meaning as a collective. Fantastic. And with that view of the future of what it could be, we also have to kind of take stock of where we are right now and what are the pain points, what are the gaps, what can we be focusing on? So can you please share 3 or 4 facts from the industries where you reside in this conversation, in this question, what is the current situation? And we're going to start with you, Chris.
Okay. For the current situation, in my first-hand interaction with students regarding sustainability, they do have very strong interest to learn and try to get into that realm of jobs or career, but they find that it's hard to move on after they learn something. And well, not all companies, they have the sustainability office or teams to work on that. So they find they have very limited career pathway to move forward. So that's one challenge when I have this the first-hand interaction with the students. And when we start the subject, the sustainability in fashion and textile, that's a very interesting subjects that combine business and chemistry. So we have 2 professors. One is me, and another one is a chemistry professor. I talks about branding, marketing, and operations, and he talks about materials. So why are we doing that? Because in university curriculum, we have very limited credit space. So if we have 2 subjects, one for business, one for technology, like materials, then it takes 6 credits. So that will be much harder to put that into the core of the whole discipline. So that's, I guess, that's very unique in the whole, among all vision school, that you have professors from business and chemistry work together for this subject. But I think it makes sense, okay? And of course, so that's the facts. And when we start the subjects, it was an elective. And once we open it, it's full immediately. And we have to keep expanding the quota until 70, okay? It's still full. So now it becomes our core subject, and the class size is 180. So, so every graduates from Poly, they will have some training and education on that. So that's the fact, but still, it's just one subject, okay? It's far from like a profession. So I think that's what we lack. There's one thing that we did with REDRESS. We tried to propose a sustainability fashion subject for all PolyU students. So that means the coverage will not be 180, that will be thousands of PolyU students. But we have to compete with other similar projects or proposal. Then somehow it didn't work out last round, but we will continue to do that. But I think expanding the sustainability education to all students, not just for fashion students, that's an important part in upcoming. And we should try more, we should spend more time to think about how we can develop this into a discipline. The closest choice is a compliance auditor. So if you may know that there are certain certifications like RAB from the US, quite popular among the fashion industry, and they offer our students auditor trainings for free. So well, I have to give them credits. They have done that for like 5 years in a row for PolyU students. So some of our students can actually find a job because of that training. It shows that the university has to work closely with NGO and some compliance body in order to continue to develop the education into a real discipline that's being recognized.
So I just want to jump in and say, for those who are not familiar with WRAP, WRAP stands for Worldwide Responsible Accredited Production. So just to give you insights into what that is. Thank you.
Yeah.
And did you have some more points to share on this one?
Yeah, for that one, when we open it for students to apply, we always have 10 times applicants and a quota. So it shows that how strong the students are really are interested to make this as their career. So we do have cases that eventually got a job for that. Yeah, so yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Morgane, I'm going to introduce your take on this here because there's overlap between the work that you do together. So please tell us what your points are.
Yeah, so for the ones that maybe are not too familiar with REDRESS, we are really, as Tanja mentioned, bridging, the worlds of academia and industry, and hopefully acting as a force to kind of bring everyone together and collaborate on sustainability, circularity, and fashion. And at REDRESS, we've been around for over 10 years, and we're still witnessing just an increasing amount of wasted resources. I'm not just talking about the end product, the textile, but what goes behind carbon emissions and water, and that situation is not really improving. We are doing as much as we can as an industry, but it's still increasing, as we've seen in the stats. But on the flip side, we've also noticed over the years that there is an increasing and growing interest from both academia and students and industry to do better. And that's very, very encouraging. And that's really also motivating us to keep our mission relevant. And so I'd like to point out, on academia side, we've noticed over the years more and more academic institutions interested in partnering with us, and that's really encouraging. So we have at the moment 160 key partners across the globe. That might not seem like much, but it actually means that these 160 partners are with us, tapping into the resources that we can provide, reaching out to us for lectures, for events, and getting all their students involved. So if you think of 160 times, it can go from 30 to 100 to 150, 200 students per institution. That's actually really good reach. And we see, that our partnerships are growing because, to Chris's point, it is hard for institutions to implement fast enough, those very much needed modules and core subjects and even, an entire embedded program. So we see that there's a real need for supplementary courses and extra support, and so this is why we exist. On industry side, we have been collaborating with industries, with brands and retailers like VF for a number of years, and so I've only been at REDRESS for a year, but talking to my colleagues that have been around for much longer, we've also noticed a shift in how these companies have engaged with us. It used to be a bit more of an ad hoc engagement with us, maybe sometimes a bit of a tick the box, or it's just a CSR engagement with some of our programs that may be more consumer or corporate focused, like our Get Redress Month program, or our Take Back programs. But over the last maybe 2-3 years, we've really noticed this shift as well from the industry that's, they're not just there to tick the box anymore. They actually really want to contribute. They really want to support us. And actually, education is playing the central part in their sponsorship and their partnership with us. And this, obviously, is amazing for us because we see that then, we can bridge better those two worlds. I mean, as an example, we're actually right in the middle of our educational boot camp for our finalist of the REDRESS Design Award 2021 cycle. And we've been running group activities with TAL Apparel, with Browswear, with Icebreaker from VF. The prize is going to be with Timberland from VF. There's a lot of companies and smaller companies as well that are getting involved with us. This year we've had Average Innocent sponsoring also some of our educational content. So there's really this drive as well from the industry to share with students and emerging designers what they are doing and how they're doing it, so that it gives a bit of insights to these students that might not have access actually to the complexities of what the fashion industry is. But they're also, there's companies that are also looking at learning from the younger generation. So there's really that exchange. So I think for us it's really encouraging, and we see that we have an amazing reach in terms of educational resources, and there's more and more demand. So these students' appetite, like Chris was saying, is very real. I can definitely confirm that. And these academies, their appetite is very real as well. I mean, let alone this year, we've reached over 6,000 students through just lectures. We're a team of 3 people in the education team. And we've given enough lectures to reach out to 6,000 people, 6,000 students. So this is encouraging. That's the current situation. There's way more to do, but.
Sure. What do you think is behind that drive over the last 2 years? What do you think has prompted that shift?
Oh, I'm sure Sara can also will talk to how consumers are more aware. I think this is just this wave of awareness for everyone. There's also been, policies that have been implemented, not necessarily in Hong Kong specifically, but around the world, that made brands and retailers having to either get the act together or that have just pushed them to do even more. And I think somehow this is just part of everyone kind of realizing that, the fashion industry is not exactly the most glamorous industry. There's a lot of waste, and we need to do something about it.
Thank you. Thank you. Sara, do you see that happening in the industry? Is that reflective to your environment?
Yeah, so from my vantage point, there's 3 main things I've noticed recently. One is what Morgane just touched upon. So consumers are much more aware of and engaged in sustainability. We have an internal consumer insights team, and they've definitely seen a change. Gen Z is more committed to making purchases that are aligned with their values. They're voting with their dollars to drive change in this industry. And this trend has only been amplified by the pandemic, where changes in purchasing practices were accelerated as people became a bit more aware of how companies responded to COVID and had a lot of time to reflect on impacts that they and others are making in the world. So we've definitely been seeing that. We also see this rise in awareness reflected in the increase in the number of rating and ranking organizations, which are focused on fashion brands, as well as social media posts that talk about sustainable attributes of a product or sustainability-related activities of a brand. And brands are responding to this by investing more in their messaging around what they're doing as a company and how their products contribute to doing good, whether that be through increased reporting, surveys, marketing, social media campaigns, or other methods to reach those audiences. So that's one. The second main thing that I've seen is that we're seeing this growing interest in sustainability in our recruitment. Now, my perspective is probably skewed because I work in the sustainability department, but the candidates we interview, who are also very likely our consumers, ask us pretty specific questions about what VF is doing in the environment space and in the social responsibility space. And it's clear to us that these people who are entering the workforce or are already in the workforce and maybe changing roles or companies, they really do want to work at a company that shares their values, and they want to feel confident that the company will do what they personally believe is right. They're really tuned into this topic. But this is also a trend that I've been noticing among our existing employees at VF. I think the pandemic accelerated this part as well, where people, they just want to feel there's purpose to their jobs. We spend many hours a day, so much time of our lives at work, and people want to feel it's making a difference somehow. So I've been getting more and more informational requests lately from internal associates, wanting to learn more, wanting to get involved, or even wanting to transition over to the sustainability function from completely different functions of our organization. And this is great. The more the merrier in our view. But when new candidates or existing employees bring this up proactively, we really like it, not just because we're the sustainability people, but because their interest in this space indicates that they do share the same values with our company, which is really important for the business and really important for the individual in terms of personal career fulfillment. And the third and final point I want to make here, ultimately the goal is to embed sustainability into the core as part of everyone's job function, similar to what Chris was saying about it being integrated into other classes and other programs. As a business, we want that embedded in the fabric of everything that everybody does. And we've started this by requiring all VF employees, director level and above, to include sustainability goals into their regular annual goals. So these goals will count as part of our annual performance reviews, and part of our compensation is tied to meeting those goals. This is a trend I've seen an uptick in for our company and for others. This focus on sustainability being a shared objective and therefore a shared responsibility for all employees, and tying this to performance metrics and compensation, I believe is a really powerful tool to move the needle in this space. So I'm glad to be seeing what I've been seeing lately.
Great. Miruna, what are you seeing from your side in the educational space?
From my side, I can definitely confirm Sarah's point about new people entering the workforce, really looking into whether the value of the brands are aligned with their own values. Yeah, definitely young people don't just want to do empty work anymore. They want to feel it has a meaning and definitely aligns with what they feel is right. And I think this process of value check, of aligning your values, is actually having a big influence on the fashion industry. I also know a bit more extreme examples. For example, our sustainability lecturer at the Amsterdam fashion industry, I remember I got this lecture from her in my second year, and yeah, she actually told us that she was trained in apparel design, but because she realized there's such a big clash between her values and the values of the linear apparel system, she just couldn't do it. The clash between values was too big, so she decided she's gonna, instead of product design, she will focus on system design instead. And yeah, she's actually the one who in 2016 founded the Dirty Laundry Collective at Amsterdam Fashion Institute. And since 2016 until today, there was definitely a big shift in attitude at our school towards sustainability, because yeah, they helped little by little implement it in the curriculum and also in the mindset of the school. So it came up more and more. So yeah, I think it's interesting how this confrontation of values is actually bringing a whole new wave of influence. Basically, people who become so at contradiction with the values of the industry, they are actually the ones who bring the new wave of change. So they can align it to how they would like it to be.
I think, if I can jump on this, I think it's fascinating what you're saying, Miruna. Sorry, I'm looking at you here. Because then, the example you took is not someone that just gave up and decided to do something completely different, but instead being an actor of change. And I'm really hoping that, anyone, specifically, new designers in the next generation, but as well as, consumers and educators, like anyone can be an actor of change like this and decide, okay, well, this doesn't align with my values anymore, but I don't have to just write it off and throw it all away. And instead, I'm just going to go and fight against that system and find solutions to make it better. So I think it's very, very inspiring. Yeah,
I was really curious what you said about the mindset change, Miruna. Can you give us some examples of what that looks like? We all know, we all have an idea of what it means to live by your values or to make better choices, but as a collective or as an influencing thought, how does that manifest, or how did it manifest?
Well, the closest example to myself I can give is, just how my projects and my designer friends' projects ended up looking like at the Amsterdam Fashion Institute, because in the beginning, sustainability was on the checklist, so it was definitely a criteria you would be graded on, but it was a bit more vague, and something you knew had to happen, but was a bit last minute. It wasn't necessarily the focus of your project, but what I see more and more, Laundry played a role in this, is the fact that now more and more projects actually start from the premise, how can this achieve my sustainability goals, and then form follows function, basically. So there's actually a lot more projects I see which aim towards a sustainability challenge rather than a certain aesthetic. So that's definitely a shift in mindset that I've noticed, and I found very inspiring to see.
Yeah, I agree. It kind of shifts the balance of things. Great, thank you. So our next question, we're going to shift a little bit into what are the gaps? What are the pain points that we see, and how can we overcome them? And we'll start with you, Sara. What are the gaps that you identify?
So I think when you're studying and don't have practical experience just yet, it can be hard to fully understand how sustainability theory or concepts can be applied and have perspective on the challenges you'll face when working in a company or any organization, really, whether that's corporations or nonprofits or academia. There's always going to be things that you're not prepared for and didn't expect. I've been working with corporations for most of my career, and I can tell you that my viewpoint and expectation while I was in school and learning about sustainability was quite different. I'm very much an environmentalist at heart, and I personally believe sustainability should take precedence over everything else, but this is not always reality, and I've learned that a balanced approach needs to be taken. When you're working in the business world, there's going to be trade-offs, sometimes really hard ones, between what you would consider ideal and what is actually possible. A for-profit company is not in business to be a charity or a nonprofit. They need to consider the business needs from a variety of different perspectives: investors, shareholders, consumers, their margin, their operating costs, and on and on and on. Many, many things need to be thrown into that decision-making process. And implementing sustainability work does, in fact, take resources. It takes money, it takes people, it takes time, and these things are not finite for anyone or any company. There's always going to be a need to have a negotiation, and there'll be gives and takes. So as a new grad coming out of university, I personally was unpleasantly surprised by this at my first job. I thought that everyone was thinking the same way I did, when in fact, those people better understood that a balance needs to be struck in all of those decisions that need to be made on a day-to-day basis. So at VF, we're very fortunate that our CEO and our top leadership are committed to the sustainability agenda. They believe in it from a visionary perspective, but also from a business perspective. We do see that sustainability can be a driver for business growth, and we keep our company purpose central to all of our business decision-making. And thanks to that commitment from senior leadership, we have put many resources behind doing meaningful, measurable work around environmental and social issues, making our products and materials traceable, engaging with the industry to tackle these big issues like circularity and climate change. But again, resources are finite all around, so we need to be choiceful in what we do and where we do it and how we do it, so that when we're making these decisions, we can make the biggest impact possible with what we do have available to us. So I think that gap between fresh grads or someone who's just learned about this topic and then applying it is one of the gaps that I faced personally, and I would imagine others do as well.
Yeah, that's fair. Expectations versus reality, right? Morgane, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, it completely echoes with what Sara is saying in the way that, and I guess with an extra layer, because at REDRESS we are facing fashion designers, right? So it's very specific to designers. And designers are quite often trained, and I think not trained in the sense just the university, but trained as a cultural thing that they're going to be these artists, they're going to be these names, they're going to be very visionary, right? And it's just going to be beautiful and glamorous, and it's just going to be this piece of art that they're going to put out, and it's going to be their vision, and the consumer's just going to love it. And actually, on the flip side, looking at sustainability, and it can sometimes probably come across as saying, well, I'm going to be a sustainable designer, so I'm just going to do all these things that are just good for the planet, and it's just going to work that way. But actually, none of these designers, as well-intentioned as they might be, are really exposed to what the real world is. And the real world for fashion industry means all the operations that happen when you want to put a design into an actual product that's actually worn and hopefully worn over and over.
Hopefully.
And so there's all these ideas, these ideals, and there's not much of the reality kicking in. And I think it's a little bit sad because I think a lot of the designers are then struggling a lot and a bit disheartened in looking at, if I want to be a designer, it's hard enough because I'm told that the fashion industry is really polluting and wasteful, and that it's not a very sexy industry to be in when you really look, scrap the varnish behind. And then, for the ones that want to be sustainable, they realize, well, now I'm told that I need to, make money, and I actually need to survive of this and hopefully even thrive rather than survive and make money. So at REDRESS, we see a lot of designers that come across with some ideals like this, and we work a lot in, putting them in touch with industry and having mentorships and having, again, educational boot camps and activities and masterclasses and things like this, so that they really understand that sustainability is not just all the ideals, but is also making it work in real life with a triple bottom line, profit, people, product. That's just the reality of it. So I think for me, this is the real gap, is these designers that are educated one way, and I completely get that it's so difficult because, to Chris's point again, their time is so limited. They have to get these kids, the kids when they start studying, we're all kids at some point where we're shoved a million of information when we all studied whatever we studied, and then we're thrown to the lions in the real world, and we're still missing half of our education to really make it. So, and designers are a kind of breed that's probably a bit different than the ones that end up in just more traditional operations, right? So that's where the gap lies.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts, right? And that idealism and that optimistic creative streak that doesn't get completely dampened by the industry, the business, the realities, the money, the sustainability, how do you move forward where that all becomes a lot more holistic and less like punishment, like you have to make this granola shirt because it's good for the environment, as opposed to you have to make something really beautiful in every sense of the word. Yeah. And I think that's where kind of perhaps still somewhere one foot in one place and another foot in another, but hopefully things will take us in a better direction. Yeah. But yeah, what you were saying, Chris, these students have to learn how to design, manage their bank accounts, manage their supply chains. It's just 1,000 different things. So it's an interesting point to be in time. And what do you think about this?
Yeah, and it depends on how you view on the scope of the business side and the sustainability side. So from a designer or operational level perspective, of course, you're under pressures to make profit out from one product, okay? But if you narrow the scope of view just that, then you will miss well, the other benefits that as a whole organization that you can, actually benefit. So from my research, we find that, well, for fashion and textile industry in the companies, when they do go for environmental management system and they do a lot of environmental improvements, they do have about 3.3% of profitability improvement compared to the same company, the same time that didn't do any environmental improvements. So it shows that it's not just for one product making profit, but eventually you can save costs from other aspects. So that's why I keep saying that it's a strategic level perspective. When you look at one product, it may not make so much money, but if you change the whole system, the cost saving is from other places. So we need to educate the senior management that is actually bring benefits. So in another study, I study the health and safety operations. That's also a key part of sustainability. It brings 1.3% improvement of the profitability compared to another company, similar size, same time, same industry. So it shows that the benefits is clear, the linkage is clear, but only at the very top level. You're looking at very minor level, smaller, one product, you may not see that. So, and the time frame is long. These kind of benefits can only be visualized after 2 or 3 years. So maybe the senior management already changed, or the designer already being fired. So that's the challenge here. You need to have a very high views, and it gives you enough time in order to make it. So VF, I think they did a great job. I think it's a good example for the transparency they did, and for the efforts they spent on the controlling suppliers. Mm-hmm. In my another research, I'm sorry, I keep saying that.
You like research.
If you source from a bad suppliers, they have violations in China, and can you guess, well, how does that affect their stock price? So.
Can we guess, sorry, can you repeat that? Can we guess?
The stock price will actually go down.
Oh, the price, okay, got it.
Yeah. If the suppliers get the violations being punished and being, put it on the newspapers in China, okay? So that's 0.3% of stock price adjustment. It sounds just a very small amount, but when a fashion firm easily go for like 200 suppliers, 300 suppliers across Asia, and in 1 year, maybe you got 10 violations, then that's 3% adjustment of your stock price, and the market values could be huge. So, but these perspectives were not well, presented to the industry. So that's why it's hard to. So back to my dream is to bridge the gap, to reach the goal is to share these informations to the senior management, maybe on the floor, on the internet. Right now, we should give some patience to this initiative, and it will eventually benefit. Yeah.
So kind of play a long game, right?
Yeah.
So Miruna, I know that your gap is a little bit different to that of the others discussed so far. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. But just like Chris, I also have to link back to my dream when talking about gaps. Because, yeah, of course, I think the gap is a gap of values. And that's actually coming from something bigger than all of us, because I think the fashion industry, like any other industry, has no choice but to exist under the umbrella of capitalism. And yeah, the scheme of capitalism is clear. Consumption feeds economy, consumerism feeds capitalism. So yeah, our own personal values, I'm afraid, are more influenced than we would like by the values of the economic system we find ourselves in. And yeah, maybe that's a bit where the confusion and vagueness of sustainability comes from. I think it comes from the fact that the capitalist value system teaches us to think and measure in terms of growth, more, bigger. So all of a sudden you have this new value, sustainability, which is abstract because it doesn't really link back to the terms we're used to think in and to what we perceive as valuable. So that's why I really think that we can't really keep quantifying and thinking in terms of growth because time is running up, and I feel like at this point sustainability is just a nicer word we're using for survival. So basically and we can't really afford to go on doing that. But I think actually a very interesting exercise is to try to reflect and think about what values are actually your own and which values are more or less inherited actually from the economic system you find yourself in. And actually an interesting way I experienced to drift away from the consumerist system, from the capitalist system, is very simple thing of swapping. So like swapping, belongings with other people, which is actually something that's not new. Everybody's doing it, but I think what nobody realizes while doing it is that when you're doing that, you're actually experiencing an alternative consumption system. So like, whoa, you're doing something very alternative. And I think that is also something interesting that could happen if actually corporations and companies would focus more on facilitating these interactions and exchanges between people and the shared living model as an alternative to putting new products on the market, trying to feed capitalism, trying to drive consumption. It might be interesting to just try to stimulate the flow of goods that already exists and stimulate a bit of alternative thinking, like what can we do with what we already have instead of making more. So I think the gap is really a thing of values, and it's a thing of a big gap of how we're gonna reshape the economy, because the economy is what's gonna shape our values in the long run. As long as we see profit as financial profit, I think our values won't change. But if we start thinking in terms of maybe environmental profit, then the conversation is going to be different as well. But that's definitely a thing that takes time, I think.
That's something I think about a lot too, right? How do we meet people's needs in terms of, I don't believe we'll come to a time when people stop shopping, when people will want something different. Not necessarily brand new, but different. And different can be secondhand, it can be upcycled, it can be a number of different things. But I don't know that we're going to be able to escape that cycle of how we're wired and how we behave as a society. So the question perhaps might be is, how do we create a system that meets those needs, but that doesn't have this very slash and burn approach to how we use resources. For example, I stopped buying new clothes 4 years ago, and to be honest, I've never enjoyed fashion more. I still buy, but it's secondhand. So there are a lot of different ways of shifting those values or those ideas around things, and I'm curious about how we can get better at that. So having said that, what are the practical actions that we can take right now? So we've just discussed a lot about systems, societies, governance, economics. What can we do right now at this moment in time, and from the different areas? So we've got the industry, we've got education. Who wants to start with what can be done right now? Take it away.
I think start with what we're doing now, because just the fact that Miruna's point of view on what are the gaps to bridge the current situation to our dreams is so drastically different from maybe Sara and mine. I think that's so important to have that conversation, because this is how we're going to find solutions. And this is how we're going to manage to find ways that maybe we hadn't thought of, because, Sara, myself, Chris, we've been in the industry for a while now, and we might have been shaped a little bit by, our experiences. And Miruna is maybe a little bit more naive, not in the bad sense of the word, in this more like positive naiveness that, you have fresher ideas and you don't have that box that you're in that you need to break out of. You actually are full of, solutions that you could put together. And I feel like that collaboration between, learners, students, educators, industry is so important. And it kind of comes back to, what I was saying with how industry, our industry partners at REDRESS are here to obviously tell the students what it's like to be in the fashion industry, but also to learn from those students. And I think that's just critical, that we keep learning. So within the fashion industry, from each stakeholder, I think also just as a consumer, as a everyday person wearing clothes, we just need to continuously educate ourselves, like you're just doing, sitting on these seats, watching us online. And we've prepared some resources for everyone, maybe a learner, educator, industry. I think it's important that, you build this, for the fashion industry, for any industry, that you just keep on learning and collaborating and talking with people.
And that's a good point, how we take that word education. When people talk about branding and marketing, they're talking about educating the consumer through the storytelling, through the materials. Education is the almighty, the all bigger, the all everything of our every single day. So when we talk about education in this context, perhaps outside the institutions of formal education, rather where we're going as a society and where we're going with trying to improve things on a number of different levels. So I like that idea of taking education and really throwing it out there across generations, across industries, across everything. I think that's pretty much being curious and being open and being brave to have the conversations is half the challenge. Who wants to add some more to this, what can be done?
I'll add.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I would just want to agree that having these conversations openly and honestly is super valuable. And I do agree with the point that we all, on an individual level and otherwise, should step back and redefine what is valuable to us. The traditional ways of defining value, whether that be in a company or on a personal level, need to evolve and change as the world and expectations and current situations change. So having that discussion is really important. So I agree, and I thank everyone for bringing that up. Two things that I think, in addition to what was already said, that can be done on a practical level now. One related to the consumer. We're all consumers here, right? Whether we work at a corporation like myself or in academia like Chris or otherwise, we're all consuming. So if we tie it back to that consumer demand piece, there's two things I think we can all do. One is get information from reliable sources, do our research, and think critically about the data and the information that is provided to us. There is so much out there. The internet is great for finding any type of information you want, but it's up to us to sort through it and use our intelligence to make informed decisions. And then with that informed decision, we need to vote with our money and our dollars. Companies and brands will listen to what we're asking them for. So it is up to us to utilize our purchasing power for good, right? So that's what I think the consumer can do today. Go out after this panel and after this session and go vote with your dollar immediately. The other thing is on the company side. So I do believe that companies have a role to play to promote sustainability education. For example, at VF, we're frequently working with universities and other organizations to brainstorm, develop training material, mentor others on important topics related to sustainability. And these types of partnerships are a win-win situation. There's benefit to VF because we're able to get a fresh perspective on the issues that we're facing every day. But there's also the benefit of allowing students or even more experienced professionals in other industries or working on other topics to get that exposure to the applications and challenges of sustainability from a corporate point of view. And a great example, as Morgane has pointed out a few times, is the Redress Design Award that we participate in annually with Timberland. We mentor and offer on-the-job training for winners of that competition, and it's always been a mutually beneficial experience. So I'd say for companies, it is important to invest the time and the resources into authentically participating in partnerships like the Redress Design Award or others, directly engaging with universities and other organizations in those communities that they operate in, and to play that role of a mentor and an educator while gaining some great benefits from the brilliant people that are out there who are eager to learn and do more in this space.
Absolutely. Chris?
My turn? Okay.
If you want, we can swap it around.
And for me, I think the practical actions for education is to gather the leaders from the government, from the recruiters, and also some professionals who knows accreditations. Because whenever we try to learn something, we apply a course. We have a master's degree, we have a PhD degree. Why are you doing that? Is because of the recognitions that when you finished it, you pass assessment. So imagine compared to the accounting discipline, compared to the, not accounting is a bit far, the quality management. In that discipline, they have the Six Sigma Association to give out the champions, black belt, red belt, green belt. So you have different levels of recognitions for people to start with. So we need something like that in the sustainability context by simply copying what have been done in the quality management in the last 30 years ago. And then we will eventually build up the recognitions, and these recognitions have to be endorsed by the government, because when they do sourcing, they need suppliers with these systems. Then everyone will be doing that. So everything diffused in industry and supply chain based on three types of force. First is from the coercive, the government force you to do it. Second is the normative force. That means the professional association, like those quality associations. We need something similar, large in scale in the sustainability context. Third is the mimetic pressures. So everyone is doing that, you follow that. So I think we are missing something credible in the middle and in the top. So we did a lot of things. Everyone's doing something. It seems like you feel the urge to you have to do something. But the first and second tier of pleasures are missing. So that's my view. So practically, we really would like to develop that educational. We need the middle part to make some system allows everyone to get involved, get the recognitions, and the recruiters use that to screen candidates. And the cycle will be moving. Yeah, okay. So that's my view.
And it's quite tangible, right? It's quite actionable. Thank you. Miruna, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree. Allowing students to get involved is a great point. And I actually have a very good example of this. I think it's really nice how students are getting more and more of a chance to actually shape their education and how they want it to look like. For example, Dirty Laundry created more in the beginning this closet mass index based on the body mass index, and it's basically a way to measure and quantify what's in your closet based on value. So how it works is that you can categorize, count, and reflect on your clothing. So first you categorize based on the fact if it's new, if it's gifted to you secondhand, if it's never worn, or if it's something you made, or and you can just reflect on if it was made overseas, how did you get it, who gave it to you, what it means to you. So basically bonds to it. Yeah, so it's a way to quantify your closet, and this was actually created by Dirty Laundry as an exercise, but later on it was adopted by AMFI, so as by the institution as a part of the first year curriculum. So right now, if you're a first year student, you get to do this exercise. So your first interaction with the fashion industry is you reflect on your closet and you just face it responsibly, what's in there, because that's the choices you made. And I think it's a very good exercise and a very good example of how an exercise designed by students got to be part of the curriculum in the school, which I find amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely it's nice that the students are getting more of a voice nowadays, and I think we should keep that up.
And it's nice that it's so actionable, right? It's such a practical approach to that sometimes more conceptual question. We have a lot of questions, which I'm really chuffed about. Well done, everyone. Thank you for that. I do wonder if we should jump into the questions simply because we don't have that much time left, and perhaps that might be we have some more information to share with you, but perhaps we can do that at the end. So if everyone's ready, question time, okay? And whoever feels most inclined to take the question is welcome to it. Let's start at the very beginning, and okay, I like this audience. All right, so why are educational institutions so out of touch with what's happening in the real world? Contestant number one.
Yeah, it's not out of touch, and there are many things happening in our world, right? So we are also facing the digital transformations. We are also facing the rise of AI, okay, mm-hmm. and we also in the environment that starting up your own business is easier than any other time. So you go hop on the internet, you start a social network, Facebook page, and you can start selling. So from that perspective, the sustainability is competing with other development in the whole mm-hmm. world, and that's why it's hard in education context. It's hard to put it as the first priority when you are training the new graduates. You want them to be successful. It seems that, well, if we put sustainability at the very top line of the program, it may not help them to find a better job yet. So it's not out of touch. It's actually because of the result of the recruiters, they may not actually valuing these kind of recognitions. Mm. So the data speak for itself, and so from an education or program management perspective, we need to put the student first. Mm-hmm. So that's why there are certain conflicts. Well, what is good, okay, and it really depends how the angles you view it. So we would never say sustainability is a bad thing, it's a good thing, but when for the students who are finding a job, whether it helps them or not. So I hope that answers the question. Sure,
and when you mention AI, I think about the previous panel where I think Janice was encouraging people to study digital, more AI-based virtual reality stuff. Right. And what are your thoughts on that? I mean, is that definitely a sustainable and a tangible career path for people looking at these things today?
Yeah.
I thought that was quite interesting.
Yes.
Would anybody else like to touch on this question? Any takers? Nope. Okay. I've got more for you. Given some of the sustainable fashion brands have been founded by people who were not educated in fashion school, how can these consumer-turned entrepreneurs also equip themselves with sustainable education? That's a nice, juicy one.
Me?
Anyone?
Well, there's a couple of resources. I think any company that starts with sustainability in mind, they don't have to be trained necessarily first in sustainability per se. I think as long as you've got your values and you're curious and you know where to find people and surround yourself with people that know about it, I think they can definitely crack it. And the question was, how can they equip themselves, right?
Correct. How can they also equip themselves with sustainable education?
I think as Sara mentioned, so much resources online. I mean, at REDRESS, we have a lot of online content that's, I guess, probably targeted to designers if you're a designer. But there's also, got a couple here. Don't know them all by heart. I made a quick list. There's the Guide to Sustainable Strategies that was published by CFDA a while ago. At NYU Stern, so the business school of NYU, there's a Center for Sustainable Business that's a bit more focused on business and finance. For more general reports and stats about sustainability, there's the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. That's a great source. As a consumer, you can check Made From by Good On You. So there's a lot of different resources that you can have access to. I think a quick Google and you'll figure out what seems legit and what seems less legit. And I think there's a lot of industry experts in Hong Kong and all over the world that are always happy to be supportive. So if anyone is trying to launch a business and kickstart and needs some advising and mentoring, I'm sure any of us would be happy to chip in and give our 2 cents. Yeah.
Sure. And
I would just add to that point, our sustainability department at VF is over 120 people globally, and not all of them have educational backgrounds specifically in sustainability. They come from all different backgrounds. They've had previous careers, previous jobs. They have degrees in chemical engineering or any number of things, right? The thing that's most important in my experience working with people who didn't necessarily go to school for sustainability or have a technical background in sustainability is the passion for it, the desire to learn and do good. It's that goes back to that value matching, actually, where if you have the same set of values, if you're looking to make a positive impact on people and the planet, you'll learn the work. People will help you. And again, yes, as Morgane said, loads of resources, loads of people around you will support and help you. So this is one of those special fields that you can get into if you have the right mindset and the desire to do so.
I have another really good question here, and it's going to be for you again, Chris, so take a deep breath. Are the Hong Kong and foreign students have different attitude or understanding on sustainable fashion? Do you see a difference?
I do see a difference. I do. In terms of Hong Kong students, they are more. That's why I keep emphasizing the recognitions. Why I'm doing this? Why I have to learn this? Does it help my career path? So very transactional. So from the exchange students that are studying in Hong Kong, I don't see that. I see the values inside is more like they buy into the whole thing, the whole concept. So, but the Hong Kong student is very career driven. I guess the Asian student also like something like that. So I guess maybe that's the answer. That's the difference. But they both very eager to learn, so that's the same. And I don't see, they're like which type of students are more eager to learn. So they both very eager to learn sustainability, but the motivation is slightly different.
That's interesting. If anybody has any questions on top of that, please just put up your hand and feel free to ask, because I think that's quite a telling change. Do you see that would have any differences in the outcomes if you're motivated by values or if you're motivated by returns, be that through?
I see. It's still too early to tell because when my students, some of them, they graduate just like with that subjects, only like 2 or 3 years. It's still too early to tell whether the values inside, the motivation will make a difference in the outcome. It's hard to tell. From exam perspective or from project perspective, I do see exchange students, they are more creative on applying the technologies or concepts. But just slightly. okay, not a big difference. So I also see very creative projects from the local students. Yeah, so hard to tell. It's still early to tell.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
If I can add to that, because the Redress Design Award, we get loads of applications from all over the world, and we obviously we know which ones are coming from Asia in general and Europe, US, and I think I'm not surprised about what you say about like the transactional mindset, and it kind of reflects also on Karen this morning when she presented the stats about this Design for the Future survey, where Hong Kong designers thought that our consumers didn't care about sustainability and therefore no point of doing it. I mean, it's a very Hong Kong mindset in general. Hong Kong is a lot about business. And, you know, maybe Europe, on the other hand, is a little bit more aware about sustainability in general. So I feel like maybe that's also not due to the education, but just the environment, and that certain parts of Asia kind of need to catch up on the raise in awareness, you know, about sustainability and why they should really care about the environment and why it's really important. And then maybe suddenly transactional will change to, you know, a set of values.
And maybe something else will influence that process, right? It might come from a different area, an unexpected area.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So we are super short on time. We've got 3 minutes left, but I have a question here that's for all of you. So give it your best, everyone. For each panelist, what do you do each day to educate someone on sustainability and or sustainability in fashion? Each day, people, every single day, what do you do?
I have one. We discussed it during lunch.
Okay, tell the audience.
When my friends that are not, you know, they don't realize sometimes the thing what I do, and on a group chat they say, oh, we've got a party and it's a theme party. I'm just going to find my outfit really cheap on Shine.com. I say no, don't go to Shine.com. Please be more conscious about your choices. So I think just that's what I do every day.
It's a full-time job. What about you guys? Anybody have any daily?
Yeah, anytime I go out, especially in Hong Kong and now in Singapore, lots of plastic everywhere. Plastic in the grocery stores, plastic everywhere you go. If you get lunch or food, grocery stores, plastic bags. They just want to give you all the plastic bags. So I always carry my reusable tote. Make sure I make it a statement to whoever is serving me. I don't need a plastic bag, please. I have my own. I also carry around, I'm becoming one of those people who like carry around their own cutlery, like dishware and stuff. So I have this, I'm carrying around in my tote my own fork and knife and spoon and
like
straws
a picnic
and all
basket.
like my own personal picnic basket. And you know, even doing this maybe for about a year or so, I am aware myself of how much plastic and disposable cutlery and things I'm avoiding. So now I make a bit of a scene to the people around me. I make sure it's noisy when I put it down and say, no cutlery, thank you, and I'll just do it myself.
Really loudly.
So yeah, it might be a little bit of an obnoxious way to educate people around me on a daily basis, but I think it helps.
Thank you. How about you, Miruna?
Thing which actually, I'm not sure if daily, but frequently, and it's really interesting, is to simply like compliment somebody on what they're wearing. So just say, I love this jacket you're wearing, and that's actually gonna tell you a lot about the person as well, because they're either gonna say, thank you, it was so cheap, I got it from this fast fashion brand, it was a steal, you know, and then you're like, but do you think that's really a good thing? Or somebody, sometimes they're gonna say it's secondhand, and you're gonna be like, yeah, that's good, that's a good answer, you know? So that's actually a good way to just start the conversation and also get to know the person next to you a bit better and maybe educate them.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I like your sneaky psychology. Very good. I'm going to take that myself. How about you, Chris?
So it's an unfair question because I teach every day. and I think I'm teaching students at different levels. And my goal is to train more professors that do this kind of research. Some of them, many of them actually, some teaching in Australia, some teaching in UK, and they are all doing sustainability-related research. So, so that's my role is a little bit different. It's not like in a meet someone in a coffee shop, I talk about that, but I do teach every day on not just the curriculum, but I train some teachers who can actually carry on that message. Yeah, so before I came, I work on the equity, inclusion, diversity problems with my PhD students. So we keep doing this every day. So it's, yeah, it's a little bit different, but we are on the same direction.
It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. I want to say a very big thank you to this audience and to our panelists. It has been an absolute pleasure to moderate this session. I have learned a lot. It's not the fluffiest subject out there, but it's important. And what I came away with today is really a lot about values. And it's really lovely to come out of a conversation like this with something so profound. So thank you all for your questions, for your attention, for being here. We had a lovely list of resources to share on screen, but we also do have some resources for you to take away with you. So if you scan the QR code, you will find a summary of what was discussed today. You will also find a list of resources to share or to use for yourselves. And if you have any further questions, please reach out to REDRESS. They'd be more than happy to assist with any information they can. And thank you.